So let's move to the first of our special discussions right here on the 9 o'clock news today. Is it time for India to think about legalizing gay marriages? There's a move towards decriminalizing homosexuality in any case. Is it time to legalize gay marriages? Joining us, we have a fairly extensive panel. I'm going to start off by welcoming Reverend Dr. Dominic Emmanuel, spokesperson of the Delhi Catholic Archdiocese. Thank you so much for being with us. Maulana Kalbe Rashid Rizvi is also with us, an Islamic scholar. Ashok Rao Kavi, who's the chairperson of the Humsafar Trust and has been a very active gay activist for a long time. Thank you as well, Ashok, for being with us. Ruth Panita now joining us. She's the author of Same-Sex Love in India. She's joining us from Lucknow. Siddharth Narayan, attorney with the Alternative Law Forum in Bangalore, is also with us. And in just a couple of minutes, we're going to be speaking to Parvez Sharma as well, who's the director of Jihad for Love. Ashok, we are seeing those scenes from New York. It's been a fairly long battle in the United States as well, and in New York in particular, to get the legalization of gay marriages, and that's why you've seen those scenes of celebration. Do you think there's any possibility at all it could happen in India?
I think it's a deterministic thing, because once you get the Section 377 out and equity is on the table, there's no way they can refuse gay marriage.
In a sense, you can have decriminalization but still not have gay marriage. That's a possibility.
That's a possibility. But I think that then the gay community, the gay and lesbian community is going to ask for it, because it's tied to so many other material benefits, you know.
Okay.
Pensions, very important things like pensions, partnerships, tenancy laws. All these are dependent on marriage, you know. And I think if heterosexual people can have them, it's our right also to have them. It's as simple as that.
Reverend Dominic Emmanuel, what would you say if people came to the church one day and said, you know, we want to be married, we are gay and we want to be married?
That question does not arise at all before the church. And before proceeding further, I have always said, and the church has always maintained, that they do not consider them as criminals, and therefore we had actually had no objection when the courts decriminalized homosexuality. But all that we are saying is that as God has created this nature, and the way nature proceeds and multiplies itself, and that has been instituted now in what we call the institution of marriage, and marriage has that purpose. Now if you want to say gay marriages, you will have to reinvent the definition of marriage, the institution of marriage. If the world is prepared for that, let's have a discussion whether you want to reinvent the meaning of marriage. But marriage as it is,
okay,
and what the society understands, what the world understands, not the church, not just the church.
Okay, Ruth Panita, let me throw that to you. What Father Dominic is essentially saying is marriage is essentially supposed to be for children. There's a certain way that nature had intended, and gay marriages therefore go against it.
Over the last 35 years, all over the country, in many small towns and villages, young female couples have been either getting married, sometimes with religious rights and parental support, or have been committing joint suicide when the parents have tried to forcibly separate them. And these young women were low-income group, non-English speaking, did not even know the word gay, had no contact with any activists. So marriage between same-sex couples has been there. It will continue to be there. I have spoken to a couple of Hindu priests who perform these marriages. There are many churches in the US who perform the marriages long before any government recognized it.
Ruth, let's just be very clear on this. Let's just be very clear on what's been happening. It's not that these are marriages that are in any way recognized by court, recognized. I mean, it's not the same thing as what is going to be allowed in New York now. There's a big difference. You can have there have been cases where two women have got married and said we are married and we are a married couple, but it's not necessarily something, and Ashok, you're nodding your head, I think you would agree, this is not what is called as being accepted, legalized gay marriage.
It's not recognized in law. What Ruth is saying is very right, that these marriages have taken place, the only bonding is love, and they want to be recognized. But these bonds are not recognized by the state, and they do come in the way.
And that's what you want?
Yeah, that's what we want.
Okay, Parvez, let me just toss to you. Parvez Sharma now joining us from New York. Parvez, just describe to us all that's been happening in New York. Seems to have been a rather tumultuous couple of days there in New York.
Vikram, it's been very exciting. I just want to disagree with your guests earlier. because God did not create the institution of marriage. It's a man-made institution. And honestly, I mean, you know, the joke going around in New York is that New York divorce lawyers are celebrating now because the heterosexual notion of marriage, of course, has failed on so many levels. And to say that marriage is only for procreation is also a fallacy. Now, that said, this is a very exciting time as an openly gay person who's been with my partner for 7 years here in the States. I feel that what it would really do is open up a whole network, if you will, of laws which were not in our favor earlier on, only at the state level. Certainly not at the federal level because we still have the Defense of Marriage Act, but, you know, property laws or hospital visitation rights with a partner you've been committed to for a long time are basic human rights which will not be denied to us anymore, at least in the state of New York. And so the mood has been celebratory. Of course, there's all these jokes going around about it, but even 2 nights ago, you know, there was a huge crowd of people in the West Village at the Stonewall Bar, where the whole modern gay rights movement started, at least in the West.
But the gay have been always gay.
Sorry, you want to say something?
Yeah. I mean, you see, Parvesh, gays have been always gay. That's what it describes. When a little thing happens, they go in a great celebratory mood and they have the whole town, they go and paint the whole town.
So why are you so upset about it?
No, nobody's upset about it, but then he's describing that that's a great thing happening. No such great thing happening, my dear friend.
Oh,
you don't think that the whole society is gay about it. A few of you gay people are gay, and that is fine. But you please note also what...
Let me tell you that America is a deeply moralistic Christian nation. So to assume that in America there is celebration all around the country is not true. If anything, the churches in America are organizing around the new law, and they're planning to challenge it on a state level. So let's be clear that this celebration idea is not necessarily true.
All right, Parvez, thanks a lot for joining us to tell us what's been happening in New York. I just want to turn to to some of our other guests. Maulana Kalbe Rashid Rizvi, marriage is not, as what Parvez said, marriage is not made in heaven, not made by God. Marriage was made by man, and therefore there is nothing unnatural about gay marriages.
Well, मैं यहाँ फादर की बात से पूरी तरह सहमत हूँ जो वो ये कह रहे हैं. मैरिज बिल्कुल कुदरत की तरफ से होता है, और कुदरत की तरफ से इसलिए होता है कि अगर आप ये कहें कि ये इंसान ने किया है तो इंसान को ये किसने दिया है. तो अगर हम किसी भी धर्म की स्टडी करते हैं तो कोई प्रॉफिट आया है, कोई नबी आया है, कोई पैगंबर आया है, कोई बुक्स आई है, उसमें उसने अपना कानून भेजा है और उस कानून पे अमल किया गया है. राइट. मैं यहाँ सिर्फ इतना कहना चाहता हूँ कि जैसे हिंदी भाषा में पैसे को 2 नामों से याद किया जाता है, धन और लक्ष्मी, वैसे ही हम इस काम को अगर हिंदुस्तानी कानून के हिसाब से देखें तो 2 नामों से बोला जाएगा. एक को सीन कहा जाएगा और एक को क्राइम कहा जाएगा. मैं क्राइम पे बहस नहीं करना चाहता. मैं इतना आपको कह सकता हूं कि चाहे आप किसी भी मजहब की स्टडी कर लें, सारे मजहब इसे सीन मानते हैं. क्राइम के लिए कोई नहीं कह रहा, क्योंकि अगर कोई आदमी पैदाइशी गे है,
आप दोनों यही चीज कह रहे हैं कि it shouldn't be a crime, but it is a sin nevertheless.
See, the Constitution of India doesn't recognize sin. One thing, the Constitution of India recognizes equals, and the Constitution of India has to offer equals what it offers other people, other citizens. And I don't see there has to be a deterministic drive towards marriage. Another thing, if the good father says that marriage was made in heaven, then where did divorce come in? Was it also made in heaven? The number of divorces in Europe is now practically hitting about 40%.
Can I just turn to Siddharth? Can I just turn to Siddharth Narayan? The entire question of where legality in this comes in, just wanted to get your perspective on this. Maulana Sahib says that he and the father both are saying that they have no problem with it being decriminalized, but that grey marriages cannot be accepted. It's a sin, it's unnatural.
Can you hear me, Vikram?
Yeah, I can hear you, Siddharth. Carry on.
Okay. So first of all, before I actually answer that question, I think it's important to also make the point that marriage is not a logical demand from the LGBT community either. I mean, there are many ways of recognizing, all that we've been talking about, pensions, insurance, partnership rights, without actually talking about marriage.
Okay, so you're saying that the gay community in India may not necessarily say gay marriages should be permitted, and you're saying there are other ways of doing it. What would those be?
Absolutely, and one of those ways that I think you can actually do it is to expand this notion of partnership benefits to something much broader, right? Why should it be that just a spouse is the person to get a benefit? Why can't it be a best friend, somebody you've been living with, somebody you trust? Like, why can't we look at it slightly broader than just the fact that it's two people who are getting married?
Okay, Ashok, do you have a problem with that? Don't call it gay marriages. Don't call it a marriage. Just say it's a partnership.
What I totally agree with Siddharth is he's even broadening the concept of marriage. The idea of civil unions, for example.
That's what we are saying. Basically, then should we redefine marriage?
The world understands
it is
being
about
redefined.
Marriage. One thing. Secondly, as the church understands that marriage, the purpose of marriage, one of the main purposes of marriage is procreation.
Yeah.
And continuity of this creation. Now, that is the main purpose. Of course, bonding and strengthening the bond of husband and wife and having that family with children, that is the other aspect and very important aspect.
In the US, they do allow adoption by gay couples.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then
Vikram,
US is not India to begin with, and then the US has a lot of other laws and facilities which India doesn't.
Vikram,
we can't compare.
The bonds, the vows of marriage do not talk about procreation. They talk about love. They talk about bond. They talk about mutual respect.
But the father says that, I mean, again, he's coming back to it. He says the basic purpose of marriage is
no,
to have
but
children.
that's not defined. I mean, if it is the basic, the concept.
No, you want to change the definition.
It is already changing. If it is a concept of procreation, you can procreate without getting married. There are about 28% of the children born last year in England were born to single mothers. So what's the question of procreation? Why is it being brought in?
Is there necessarily, to your mind, a link between marriage and procreation? बच्चा होना, शादी, ये दो चीजें लिंक्ड हैं।
बहुत ज़रूरी है। देखिए, मजहब क्या है? मजहब जीने का वो बेहतरीन तरीका है जिसमें आप जीते हैं लेकिन आपकी तरफ से किसी दूसरे को तकलीफ नहीं पहुंचती, और हर मजहब मेरे ख्याल से इन्हीं कायदे कानूनों को लेके गुजरता है। जब आप मैरिज बोलते हैं तो हमारे यहाँ भी अरबी में हम कहते हैं तनाकहू व तनासलू व तकशरू, कि आप निकाह करो और आपकी नस्ल आगे बढ़े, आपका नाम आगे बढ़े, आपकी पहचान आगे बढ़े।
But just on a slightly theological point, does that mean that a couple which cannot have children for other reasons should therefore not get married?
No.
If the only purpose of marriage is procreation, what if there's a man who can't have a child? What if there's a female who's infertile? Does that mean they shouldn't get married?
That's again the gift of nature, or not the gift of nature, that has not been given to them.
Okay.
You see, the
I'm
purpose
just sort of
is
questioning the simple link between.
Sure. When people get married, they're not getting married not to have children. They certainly want to have children, but for some reason or the other, I'm wearing glasses.
You could get married knowing that we can't have a child for whatever reason.
You could also, for being together.
Vikram, according to me, religions only give a stamp. The real idea of marriage between a man and a woman was to assure inheritance, was to assure that the child was the father's. For inheritance purposes, I don't think.
In the gospel, Jesus said, what God has united, let no man put asunder. So in marriage, we believe that God is uniting them. At least that's our faith and that's our belief and that's our practice.
Ruth and Siddharth, just wanted to ask you, how do you see this going forward? There has been a movement for a while for decriminalization. With Article 377 being set aside 2 years ago in Delhi, there's a move to take this to other part of the country. Is that, in your view, the battle that the gay community should be fighting for decriminalization? Or is this entire gay marriage issue a bit of a sidestep, a distraction which we should not even go down? What's your view?
After decriminalization come other battles like non-discrimination in employment, recognition of legal rights of same-sex couples, whether you call it marriage or civil unions. Some countries have called it domestic partnerships. और जहाँ तक opposition की बात है, जब अंतरजातीय विवाह गैर कानूनी हुआ करते थे, गोरों और कालों के बीच में विवाह, हिंदू मुसलमान विवाह, जब ये सब कानूनी किए गए तो इनको भी अप्राकृतिक कहा गया, इनके लिए भी बहुत विरोध आया, लेकिन अब वो स्वीकृत हैं। जहां तक बच्चों की बात है, if two 60-year-olds want to get married, a man and a woman, would you say that they should not get married because they cannot have children?
Well, that's more or less exactly the question that I just asked.
But those are exceptions, Ruth. You can't make those by rules. Come on, you can't quote exceptions of 60 years people getting married. How many 60-year people do you know who get married regularly?
Actually, a large number.
I'm not sure of that. I mean,
I know a lot.
Large number. Maybe that I'm out of news or I'm living in a different world. Not that I know of.
Well, all right, Siddharth.
The point is, the law allows you to get married regardless of whether you can have children or not. But if you have had a hysterectomy, it is no bar to getting married. The law does not ask you, can you have children before they allow you to get married.
But Ruth, laws are made to, that the society runs in order. But there are certain natural laws. And those natural laws, these other laws, human laws that are made around to protect that natural law. So human laws will be made. But fundamentally, we are guided by natural law.
The desire to live together as a couple, the desire to live together as a couple is a natural law which around the world people are wanting. When Leela Nurmila and Bhopal, Ajay Tanuja and Patna want to live together for their life, that is a natural law. It's a natural love. Nobody taught that to them.
All right, do you want to respond to that?
Well, see, again, she is quoting exceptions. I just told her
okay,
that you are making exceptions, you are quoting exceptions, and you are asking us all to take that as a rule. An exception does not make a rule.
Okay.
On the contrary, a rule has an exception.
How can you call gay marriage an exception?
Absolutely,
I don't understand.
Absolutely.
That 30 million gay men in this country, I mean, they're not an exception. I don't know from where, suddenly when he wants it, it becomes a natural law. Suddenly when he wants it, it becomes an exception. I just don't understand the logic of this.
Can I, Siddharth, before we end this, just wanted to know, Siddharth, where you stand on where you think, what do you think the real fight for the gay community should be in India? Final thoughts from you.
I think the real fight actually lies, if you look at what's happened in the Delhi High Court and what the judges are saying, the real fight really lies in taking this forward to look at anti-discrimination policy, anti-discrimination law, making sure that people who are together, I mean, they might call themselves partners or friends, but even unmarried couples, for instance, can actually inherit from each other, get pensions, insurance. You know, and there are actually live issues of violence, police violence that are ongoing. You know, I'm sitting in Bangalore, and the Karnataka government has just passed this legislation which criminalizes the Hijra community. So these are ongoing issues that we have to take very seriously, and I think that's where the battle actually lies.
All right, say that, we certainly would encourage that everybody gets their rights, and to that extent, I am with Siddharth.
No.
I am with Siddharth, but we do not recognize gay marriages, and there cannot be gay marriages. Let us be clear about it. But we should give them their rights.
Before we end, I'm just trying to get some sort of a consensus. ये decriminalization की जो बात है, लोगों को अपने अधिकार मिलने चाहिए. वो जो भी अगर आप उनके सही माने, गलत माने, sin माने, ना sin माने, उनके rights मिलने चाहिए. इस बात से आप सहमत हैं?
नहीं, मैं बिल्कुल इस बात से सहमत नहीं हूं कि जो चाहे उसको मिले. मैं इस बात से सहमत हूं कि जो सच हो वो मिले, जो हक हो वो मिले. मैं इस बात से सहमत हूं कि अगर कहीं बारिश ज़्यादा हो जाती है और नेचर के खिलाफ हो जाती है तो सारा मीडिया उस बारिश को कवर करता है. कहीं गर्मी 10 साल में ज़्यादा पड़ जाती है तो सारा मीडिया उस गर्मी को कवर करता है. कहीं बर्फ़ पड़ने लगती है तो उस मीडिया बर्फ़ को कवर करता है क्योंकि नेचर के खिलाफ हो रहा है. पिछले 10 साल में नहीं हुआ. ये गुनाह है, इसे सीन कहा जाएगा, और ये सीन गुनाह किसी आदमी के खिलाफ नहीं है, कुदरत के खिलाफ है. तो जो चीज़ें भी कुदरत के खिलाफ होती हैं, कुदरत में बिलीव करने वाला कोई भी आदमी, चाहे वो ईसाई हो, चाहे वो हिंदू हो, चाहे वो मुस्लिम हो, अगर वो मजहब को मानता है तो कभी हाँ नहीं बोलेगा.
Okay, I'm going to give you the final words and I have to end this.
I am very sorry that I am hearing this, but it was predetermined, because just last week, sexual orientation as a human right has been endorsed by the United Nations, and the two organizations that have really opposed it are the Organization of Islamic Countries and the Vatican. You shouldn't have called them. If they deny us our human rights, they're not going to say okay to marriage. You know, that's all, that's what I want to put on the table.
I just said that all the rights should be given as equal human persons, but marriage is not recognized.
This is obviously a debate that needs to continue and probably will continue, and we will recommence this debate at some point, because I think the more these things are spoken about, and the more we can perhaps move towards some sort of a resolution. Thank you all so much for having joined us on the 9 o'clock.